Welcome back to the Parker's Couch. Before you do anything, make sure you stop if you are new here and subscribe. If you're old here, if you are a fellow couch potato, go ahead and hit that like button. And even if you are new, hit that like button as well. So do the things like, subscribe, share. We're on our journey upwards to 500 subscribers. We are halfway there. A little over halfway there, actually, right now at this point, or right at the halfway mark. I had to double check again with the number of subscribers we have. So let's just keep it going, keep the momentum going, and we will get there because I'm ready to bring you unfiltered material and beef up the studio, do all the things once that monetization starts getting into play. Here we go. All right. So let's continue our chat on Tyra Banks. This is part 2 of the Tyra Banks lawsuit against Netflix. If you looked at part 1, if you haven't, you can stop this one and go and look at part 1 before you look at part 2, or you could watch this one and go back and watch the other one, whichever order, it doesn't matter. But just for a quick recap, just some of the charges overall that Tyra is bringing against Netflix. There's defamation by implication, that's dealing with the sexual assault of Shandy. There's false light. There's breach of contract, and there's false endorsement. Those are the 4 main categories of charges that Tyra is alleged against Netflix with this America's Next Top Model documentary, if you want to call it that. Really was a hit piece, if you ask me. And I'm proud of Tyra and her team for doing this. And I support them 1,000%. I already made that known that they should go forward with this lawsuit. And I think they do have a solid case. So what I decided to do was to break this actually into 3 parts. After reading through the whole lawsuit again, remember it is 65 pages long. We're not covering all those pages. But what I want to do is get into pieces of it and digest it in smaller bites and really spend some time on those and read a little bit more of the court case than I was originally planning to do. Today, we're going to do pages 14 through 20 of the lawsuit, and it's going to really deal around the breach of contract, the false kind of light that is set up, and into some of the false endorsements and things going on too. So we're going to get into that big picture, and you're going to get a little taste of the role that the 3 knuckleheads played in this as well. So in February 2025, John Adler, an executive producer at EverWonder, reached out to Ms. Banks' publicist with a written summary, the pitch materials, of a proposed project that titled On Top, Exhibit 1. The pitch materials bore a Netflix logo on its cover and described the project as a definitive 3-hour Netflix docuseries exploring America's Next Top Model as a groundbreaking pop culture phenomenon. Ms. Banks had long entrusted and admired Netflix. That Netflix featured prominently in the pitch material and was putting its own brand behind the producers was of deep personal significance to both Ms. Banks and other members of her household. Netflix involvement is the reason Ms. Banks even considered the project. She had no prior knowledge about the other entities and people involved. The pitch materials made a series of specific written representations about the nature and tone of the project. The documentary would unpack the show's legacy, not as a takedown, but as a thoughtful, in-depth reflection on its influence, evolution, and impact on fashion, television, and culture. It would be equal parts authoritative and celebratory. The producers wrote that unlike other productions, we take that responsibility seriously and would treat the subject matter and all participants with respect. And the project's stated purpose was to look back and celebrate what America's Next Top Model achieved and appreciate the outsized impact it still has on pop culture even to this day. For years, Ms. Banks publicly discussed how the show was groundbreaking and where they made mistakes. The Netflix series was presented to her as an opportunity to address all aspects of America's Next Top Model. The way the producers described her role in the project convinced Ms. Banks that it was the perfect forum to share all of that. As they put it in the pitch materials, the documentary will provide the space to reflect on America's Next Top Model in a way that hasn't been done before, and to explore how the show broke barriers, where it sparked critical conversations, and how its impact is still felt today. The producers told Ms. Banks this was her opportunity to share her personal journey, addressing the challenges, successes, and complexities of shaping how a show that changed the landscape of reality television and modeling. While that framing held out the prospect of candid discussion, including the difficult parts, nothing suggested that the project would falsely accuse Ms. Banks of covering up a sexual assault or being indifferent to what a contestant characterizes as a traumatic experience. Now, if you watch the documentary, that's all we saw. Non-responses from Tyra when they will highlight something from one of the contestants, something traumatic. They cut to Tyra and it's kind of like no response. It made her look really bad through this whole documentary. The producers' representations about the project's tone were not limited to the pitch materials. In a subsequent conversation with Ms. Banks, public relations and talent teams, Mr. Adler reiterated that the goal was to explore the cultural and television impact of America's Next Top Model. Netflix was aware of all of this. Mr. Adler informed Ms. Banks' team that Netflix was aligned with the approach. The project that was pitched to Ms. Banks bears no resemblance to the one defendants produced. Defendants concealed America's Next Top Models personalities were serving as consultants. Now, before we jump into that one, I think that last line there, that the project that was pitched to Ms. Banks bears no resemblance to the one the defendants produced. I believe we can all agree with that based off of what I just read there, of how it's supposed to be this grand overview of the cultural phenomenon and the positive things. Yeah, we're going to address some mistakes, but overall, we're going to talk about like what a success this was and how much of an influence it has in culture.
Oh, see, there you go. There you go. The lies. There you go. This bitch, I'm telling you, trifling.
The documentary kind of started that way. The way it starts off with this high energy and going into everything, it has shades of that in the first bits of it. But it doesn't take long for it to just go in the direction of a hit piece and really contest its complaints and everything that was done wrong over the years and some high valued things that were done wrong over the years, according to the Netflix documentary, that made Tyra look horrible and made her kind of the center for all these things that went wrong.
So now why am I in it? And you could have did it.
See how I get wrong and
You never apologized.
So back to defendants concealed, the America's Next Top Model personalities were serving as consultants. Now, this is a very critical piece. The pitch materials identified America's Next Top Model mainstays, Miss J, Nigel Baker, and Jay Manuel, as confirmed participants in the project alongside a diverse lineup of models. When the producers were communicating with Ms. Banks, the former judges were presented as interview subjects, just as Ms. Banks would be. What Ms. Banks did not know, and what the producers did not disclose, was that Jay Manuel, Miss J. Alexander, and Nigel Barker were not mere interview subjects like she was. As Nigel Barker has publicly revealed, the three former judges were the people who first conceived of the idea of a documentary. They were ultimately credited as consultants on the Netflix series, a designation confirming that they had editorial influence and possibly were paid or otherwise compensated in connection with their involvement with or contribution to the Netflix series. This intentional omission by the producers was material, and they knew it. In particular, Jay Manuel had made no secret of his grudge against Miss Banks and the show following the non-renewal of his America's Next Top Model project contract. We saw that evident in the documentary for sure, that he felt the way, which I felt the way off of that. Like I wasn't feeling it at all in that whole situation and the way it was framed and described. Had Ms. Banks known that these individuals were so deeply involved in the formulation of the Netflix series, also serving as consultants, shaping the editorial direction, that she had been excluded from such a role, it would have raised the red flag. She would have known she was being set up. She would not have participated. She also did not know and was never told that Netflix planned for these former judges to go on a press tour, amplifying the false attacks laid out in the Netflix series. And we all witnessed that after this. They were everywhere and talking about this and really going in and digging the knife in deeper. The producer's deception could only have been for the purpose of depriving Ms. Banks of the ability to make an informed decision about whether to sit for the interview that they would later use against her.
I could not believe the shenanigans that was going on in the front row. Completely unprofessional, completely childish, and that is not what I came here to do.
Defendants disclosed interview topics in apparent good faith while concealing their preconceived narrative. In the weeks before the interview, Ms. Banks' team worked with defendants Netflix to establish the length and scope of the interview. On April 10th, 2025, Vanessa G, we're going to call her, Ever Wonder, provided the finalized list of topics that would be discussed. They included Ms. Banks' early modeling years, the making of America's Next Top Model, changes in the fashion and beauty industry, and what's been misunderstood or untold about the show. Again, Ms. Banks was encouraged that the interview would not be a mere puff piece or would cover some of the events that were misunderstood and untold. But the list contained no reference to sexual assault, no reference to Miss Sullivan or the events in Milan, no reference to any allegation that Ms. Banks had knowledge of or involvement in allowing a sexual assault to take place and then covering it up. No reference to the false central thesis of the documentary that producers were already manufacturing. You know, Shandy this is the centerpiece of the documentary. It bleeds into so much of it. And this is like what the whole documentary is essentially framed around and where most of the commentary came from. And there was zero mention of this. And that's going to come up again. The absence of these subjects from the topic list was not an oversight. It was a tool of concealment. Because they know she wouldn't have gone from this and sat down with that because she had no idea about this stuff. And we're going to get into that. Ms. Banks sits for a 3.5-hour interview in reliance on defendants' representation. Based on the written representations in the pitch materials, the oral commitments of Mr. Adler and his team, and the list of discussion topics, Ms. Banks sat for an interview in New York on April 18th, 2025. A member of Ms. Banks' public relations team attended the shoot. Mr. Adler was present on set throughout. The interview was originally scheduled to last only 30 minutes. During the interview, and comforted by everything she had been told about the project's purpose and producer's intent, Ms. Banks did not end the interview after 30 minutes. Instead, she spoke openly for more than 3.5 hours. So she gave them extra, 3 hours worth of extraness. Ms. Banks used the time as an opportunity to candidly reflect on America's Next Top Model's history, responded to questions posed. She took accountability for aspects of the show she wished she had handled differently, and engaged with the kinds of legitimate criticism she has heard before. She gave the producers exactly what they needed, not because she was naive, but because she had been deliberately and systematically misled about how it would be used. Once Ms. Banks left the interview, neither the producers nor anybody from Netflix contacted her again on fact-checking, nor did they give her an opportunity to respond to the accusations that were building in the Netflix series, accusations they had gathered from other participants before Ms. Banks ever sat down, in which they deliberately withheld from her during her interview. They did not seek her input in a way before the Netflix series was finalized. If you're doing a legit documentary and you learn some information along the way with other people you have involved in this documentary, you're going to ask follow-up questions to the creator of the show. Like, that's just logical sense. So that is total concealment. To not bring up anything that the other contestants were saying or alleging and not involving that in questions for Tyra to get a chance to directly respond to those, because she don't know what's being said by everybody else. She has no idea what's going on. So she's just talking in general. So they're using those general conversations and those general and editing out different generalized statements after some of these accusations of other contestants are played, like falsely making it look like that's what she's responding to. It's crazy work. Defendants deceptively reassured Ms. Banks. Having secured the interview footage they needed, the producers did not stop cultivating Ms. Banks' trust. Instead, they escalated. Though Ms. Banks now sees it all as disingenuous ploy, as a disingenuous ploy, both Netflix and the producers' conduct following the interview was a clear effort to persuade Ms. Banks about how important her participation was to the success of the Netflix series and how badly they wanted her to continue participating. To accomplish this, they continued their efforts to ingratiate themselves with Ms. Banks. This was particularly true of Mr. Adler. During her interview, Ms. Banks expressed to the interviewer, "You would have no idea what we planned for Cycle 25." Since the full episode of Cycle 24 aired in 2018. America's Next Top Model fans have consistently and publicly called on Ms. Banks to bring back the series for Cycle 25, underscoring the sustained demand and audience interest and a meaningful opportunity to reignite the franchise. Before Ms. Banks left the interview location, Mr. Adler discussed his interest in working on Cycle 25 with her. Then, shortly after the interview, Mr. Adler emailed Ms. Banks to thank her. He told her how happy he was. He had the chance to meet Ms. Banks on the interview set, as he explained, to say that you strengthen the series would be the greatest understatement of all time. I know it would do the story justice in a way no one else could. Yeah, do it justice in a way to fill y'all pockets and to make something just salacious and scandalous. Ms. Banks had no idea of the defendant's plan, as reflected in her response to Ms. Adler. "I care deeply about this is Tyra responding to that message. She said, "I care deeply about the legacy of America's Next Top Model, and I want the story to be told with heart, and I'm happy my voice will be integral." She continued, "It was great to meet you too. I can tell the project is thoughtful. I can tell that the project is in thoughtful hands, and that gives me peace. I'm excited to see how it all comes together." Ms. Banks' trust was violated. The false story Netflix was streamed to the world, and the true facts the producers withheld from viewers did not do Ms. Banks or the true story any justice at all. But Mr. Adler, Netflix, and the producers did not care. Their goal was clear, and it had little to do with telling the truth. Knowing the truth now, Ms. Banks finds it particularly odd and offensive that Mr. Adler also used his post-interview emails to continue press for his involvement for Cycle 25 of America's Next Top Model, talking to your agents about development for Cycle 25, he was saying. The flattery continued. The following month, Mr. Adler reached out again to request that Ms. Banks participate in a reunion bonus episode of the Netflix series. He asked, "Are you open to a reunion moment as part of a larger creative that would bring together you, Miss J. Manuel, and Nigel?" In hindsight, it is very fortunate that Ms. Banks declined. Something was in her spirit. Through her agent, explaining that she had not seen the documentary and was not comfortable participating in additional content without having viewed the finished product. Smart. It appears that Netflix and the producers were already planning to have those three former judges participate in a national and online PR campaign that would be used to amplify their false and defamatory attack. Further, neither Netflix nor the producers responded by allowing Miss Banks to review the Netflix series. That was no accident. They all clearly knew that if Miss Banks saw the lies the producers had manufactured, Miss Banks would not participate in a way that might take legal action to prevent them from publishing their false attacks because they had contractually agreed not to defame her. Undeterred, in November 2025, Mr. Adler reached out again asking Miss Banks to record a video message for a Netflix senior leadership quarterly meeting. Liz Franco at Netflix called me earlier to give me some great news. At a quarterly Netflix senior leadership meeting, they are profiling one documentary series that they are excited about for next quarter, Ours. And as such, they would love for Tyra to spend a video message, would love for Tyra to send a video message saying hello and how happy she was to participate in the project. Mr. Adler said that the meeting would include Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos and co-founder Reed Hastings. They asked me to let you know that Ted and Reed are present at the meetings, so it's a very big deal. Ms. Banks gave serious consideration to the request out of respect for Netflix senior-most leadership. The request was not unusual. Historically, Ms. Banks has made similar high-level corporate appearances to support projects about what she had fully been informed of so that she could speak accurately about them. Smart again. But still, nobody associated with the Netflix series had provided the final Netflix series to Miss Banks. So she politely declined. Again, explaining through her representatives that she could not participate because she had not seen the Netflix series. So how's she going to say, like, I'm so happy to participate. I love the way this turns out. Do all these things. And she has not seen the final product. That's a lot of trust and a lot of foolery y'all are trying to pull over on this woman. And that's crazy to me. Even after that, nobody provided Ms. Banks with an opportunity to review the final Netflix series. Nonetheless, Ms. Adler persisted. As the streaming release date for the Netflix series approached in early 2026, Mr. Adler introduced Ms. Banks to John Rafael Oliveira. For Netflix public relations team. He requested permission to use still images of Ms. Banks from her interview and promotional materials, noting that Netflix anticipated to get a lot of incoming requests once we started our promotional campaign for the documentary. Ms. Banks again declined. Now, if you watch the introduction, you know that they use her picture, unauthorized here, as promotional material. But she declined for the same reason she could not promote what she had not seen.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
Each of these requests followed the same pattern. Ms. Banks was asked for more and more content, more promotion, more of her name and likeness, without ever having the opportunity to see what Netflix and the producers wanted her to promote. They kept her in the dark because they did not want her to know. And in this last piece, Ms. Banks does not get access to the Netflix series until only one day before it streams to a global audience. Netflix and the producers finally gave Ms. Banks access to the documentary on February 15th, 2026, one day before it premiered on Netflix. By that point, the promotional campaign was already underway. Netflix had distributed a trailer across social media platforms, shaping public perception of the documentary before Ms. Banks had any opportunity to see it, let alone respond. Netflix sent press kits, screen grabs to journalists. The narrative had been set. Ms. Banks was given less than a day to absorb a 3-episode attack on her character before it was streamed to a worldwide audience of millions. She had no opportunity to correct, no opportunity to corrections, inaccuracies, request edits to false or misleading statements, or withdraw her participation. That was not an accident. It was by design. Okay, we're gonna end it there for this one. Boy, oh boy. Now, to me, that is clearly a breach of contract, and it is so shady. Like, you're definitely up to no good if you're waiting to the last day. All this time has been done. All this time you're asking for her likeness, you're asking for her promotion, you're asking for this and that. So why can't you send her the final version? Why can't you see her what she's actually representing and co-signing?
Well, just as a thought, trash.
She's such an integral part. And thank you for lending your voice to this. It could not. This would not be the same without you. All those accolades and all the bravado and everything that they built up. But this is the society we live in. Just now, just looking at a thing where I learned with Don Jr.'s membership club only, and to see the people that are performing there, where you have Busta Rhymes, you have 50 Cent, you have Ja Rule. Just earlier with this big phony Great American Fair or whatever's going on here in DC, they had a band out there playing Crazy in Love. After all the things everybody says about Beyonce and how the right feels about Beyonce and how they drag her and all these things, then you're going to play one of her songs. It's the continual thing. It's similar to this, where there's a sector of people that want all the benefits of our culture. They want to, because it's the cool factor. It's this and that. So they want Tyra. It's like, oh, we love, like, this is like having her image, her likeness out there. That's going to do so much. It's so cool. It's the end thing. But at the same time, they're going to turn around and tear you down. These same fools that are out here participating and performing in this membership only little club, just wait 5 seconds ago, 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes ago, they were talking about you like a dog. And they would talk about you like a dog after this is over. But while you're there, they're going to dance, they're going to do the things, they're going to participate in the culture. That's why people want to say the N-word so bad, right? And we see all the people getting kicked off of Love Island and this and that, and they're looking like, why is me? What's this happening? Because people want to absorb us and be a part of the culture so bad, but give us zero respect. And y'all dummies out here caping and follow, and I'm calling you dummies right now. I'm pushing you straight in the fire. Sitting out here caping and doing these things and just throwing this woman under the bus without even attempting to hear her side, or not even using your brain just to know how the world works, to think about how things really went down and if it really was this way. What was presented to her was not what was shown. There was no evolution of questions. They were all generalized, and it was all celebratory and owning up to some mistakes and here and there and talking about this. And Tyra, if you look at my first video, she has owned up to mistakes consistently since America's Next Top Model. And she talks about the thing. So there's no doubt in my mind that she held back anything in a 3.5-hour conversation to talk about what she didn't get right, what she would do differently. But y'all regulated her to looking like a buffoon and like she didn't care. Y'all got it. Y'all know better than me. But I tell you, look, if this turns out not to be true and all this stuff, I'll be boo-boo the fool. But right now, I am 1,000% behind Miss Tyra Banks, and Netflix, you are dirty, just like the rest of the world. I'm not surprised. All right, so this is going to be a part 3. I decided, as you know here, it's just so much in this court case. I think we would need to digest it little bits at a time. And so you have them all. And I want to keep the videos no longer than 25 to 30 minutes, or else we'll be here for an hour plus. And I know nobody's sitting here and watching that long. So this is for you guys to be able to digest this in a quick moment and make your own decision. All right. With that said, stay tuned for part 3. And thank you for tuning in.